Hey guys, we're going to be reading Sing Down the Moon. We're going to be reading chapters 7 and 8 today. So that's why I wanted everybody to be on chapter 7 because I didn't like how everybody just kept going at their own pace. That's great for when you're reading your own book, but when we're reading as a class, I like to stay on the same pace. So I'm going to read chapters 7 and 8 today, and I'm going to be making an announcement at the top of each page. That way, if you lose track, you'll know where we're at. I do expect you to be following along, and I do be able to expect you to answer some questions about the book. If you read the Twister book, Night of the Twisters, I don't know where you're at because I haven't talked to Miss Gidley about where you're at, but I'm not going to be reading that book. I expect you to be reading it independently, and if Mrs. Gidley is there, then she should be able to pull you and read this book. If she is not there, that's okay. You can read it independently or you can listen to it, but I'm going to be reading Sing Down the Moon with the other group. So this is Sing Down the Moon, chapter 7, and that starts on page 34. So I need all of you to turn to page 34 if you're on Sing Down the Moon. If you're on Night of the Twisters, then you can turn to wherever page you're at and just go for it. At the last house on the street, the Spaniard tied his horse to the tree and pulled on a rope that hung above the iron gate. Bells sounded far off, and an Indian girl came running to let us in. What tribe she belonged to I could not tell, but she was smiling and looked happier than the Nez Perce girl. There was a large place inside the wall where bright flowers were growing. A path led through them, and we followed it and went into a big kitchen at the back of the house. Strings of peppers hung from the rafters, some red, some green, and loops of white onions. 2 big pots of beans were bubbling on the stove. Are you hungry? A girl asked me in Navajo. No, I said, though I had eaten little for 5 days. I was rude and did not thank her. After a moment, a young woman came into the kitchen. She wore black shoes and a red velvet skirt and a white camisa. She had blue eyes, and her hair was the color of corn silk when it begins to ripen in the summer. To my surprise, she spoke to me in Navajo, asking me to walk around the kitchen. We're on the top of page 35. My boots were covered with mud, and my leggings stained from the long ride. I did not want to walk around the kitchen, nor did I know why I should, so I stood in the middle of the room and did not move. I thought if I stand here long enough, they will let me go. Surely, miss, the woman said in Spanish. Can't you bring me one with a better disposition? She is frightened, the Spaniard said. In a few days she will act better. Remember that Rosetta was this way when I brought her here 2 years ago. Now look at her. He glanced at the girl who was sitting in the beans, who was stirring the beans with a big spoon. She turned and smiled at him. I will never stir the beans, nor will I ever smile while I am in this house, I said to myself. Then the Spaniard took my arm in a hard grip and led me back and forth from one side of the kitchen to the other. I pulled away from him. She walks pigeon-toed, the young woman said. They all do, the Spaniard said. The Kiowas, the Comanches, the Nez Perezes, the Zunis, and the Apaches, all of them, the woman said. The Hopis don't walk like a pigeon. I will find you a Hopi, maybe in the fall, the Spaniard said. But now I have a strong girl who is used to hard work. We are on the top of page 37. Yes, top of page 36. Top of page 36. I have 2 strong girls already, the woman answered. I need one who can meet guests at the door and wait on table. She walked around me, gently rubbing her hand across my back. Then she asked me to smile. When I refused, she reached out and pushed my lips back with her fingers. On one side, I have a broken tooth, which happened when I was very young and felt like a stone. The woman made a sound with her tongue, but said nothing. Then she walked around me once more and left the room with the Spaniard. The girl who had opened the gate for us and was stirring the beans said, My name is Rosita. I am 12 years old, and I come from the White Mesa in Navajo country. What is your name? Where do you come from? How old are you? I told her one of my names, but not my real one. I am 15, and I come from the Canyon de Chile. I have never heard of that place, Rosita said. This surprised me, for I thought everyone had heard of the Canyon de Chile. It was the most beautiful place in the world, I said. It has the most sheep and the finest wool. It has a river and tall cliffs that catch the sun and make the melons grow bigger than pumpkins. There, the corn stalks grow taller than you are. I wanted to tell her about the canyons de Chile, but my throat filled up with sadness. This is the top of page 37. Rosita put a bowl of beans and chili on the table beside me, where I could reach it. You will be happy here, she said. The lady is kind, and her husband also. He is a soldier and does not come here often, mostly on feast days. There is good food to eat, and the work is not bad, not hard. It will be nicer when you are in the house. The other girls I do not like. She is a Zuni. From the next room, I heard the sound of a woman and the Spaniard talking. They talked like the angelos who came to our canyon and haggle over a price of wool. Rosita listened at them for a moment. The senora paid little for me, she said, but for you she will pay more. You are pretty and tall. I wish you were my sister. After a long time, the Spaniard left. He was carrying a leather pouch. It was filled with coins that jingled. I told you, Rosita said. The pouch is twice as full as it was for me. The woman came and led me out of the kitchen. My black dog was waiting for me. We went along the path to a smaller house far in the back. It had a wide blue door, and inside was a room bigger than our Hogan and home, where all my family lived, cooking and weaving rugs and sleeping. The floor was not made out of common earth like ours, but of adobe mixed with blood, and was smooth and dark on it with two Navajo blankets. You sleep there, the woman told me, pointing to a big bed. We were on the top of page 38. She spoke to me in Navajo. Her words had a strange sound, but I understood them. She opened the doors of the empty cupboard. For clothes, she said, tomorrow I buy you shoes, dresses, and some ribbons for your hair. She looked down at my black dog, who stood close to me, as close as he could get. You keep him here, she said. Not in house. Never in house. Understand? I understood. I think the black dog understood too. The woman smiled and patted me on the shoulder. Then she closed the door, and we left the black dog in the room and went back to the kitchen. She told Rosita to show me what to do. She left the house, and I did not see her until supper time. Rosita showed me how to set the table, where everything went, and how to light the three candles. Where the senora buys you a new dress, Rosita said, I will show you how to carry the food in and put it on the table. I waited in the kitchen until the woman finished her supper. When I took the food she had left back in the kitchen, there was much of it, enough to feed many people, and Rosita said that we could eat all of it we wanted. I ate little because it did not taste good. In the Canyon de Chile, everyone ate at the same time. We ate out of a big pot and we did not use knives or forks, but the food tastes better. Top of page 39. I helped Rosita wash the dishes, and she showed me how to put them away in the cupboard. Everything in neat rows. When we were ready to sleep, she showed me how to get into my bed. I did all the things she wanted me to, but after she fell asleep, I got out of the bed and lay down on the floor. My black dog curled up beside me. For a long time I lay awake, thinking of the canyon, and the mesa, and the sheep, and my family. I thought about Tallboy, too. He would come home before spring was ended. He would learn what had befallen me. Surely he would ride out with his warriors and find me and take me home. The night was very quiet. I began to wonder what I would do if he did not come home, if he did not come for me. I would steal away. Some night, Running Bird and I would go together. We would travel at night and hide in the daytime, like the Spaniards had done. An owl flew into the tree outside the window. He was silent for a long time, and then he began to make churring sounds, the sounds that the owls made at home. It was a good omen. So I want you to think for a minute what that means, a good omen. As we get to chapter 8, which is on page 40. I want you to think of what omen means and how that might foreshadow what's going to happen in chapter 8. So chapter 8 is relatively short, so we're going to read it. So chapter 8 starts on page 40. So if you're not there, I need you to get there. If you chose to listen to it without me reading it, then that is on your accord. But I'm going to be reading chapter 8 of Sing Down the Moon. So 3 mornings later, a woman took me to the store and brought me two dresses, one of wool and one of velveteen, and a pair of red shoes with buttons on them. She forgot to buy me a ribbon for my hair. I said nothing because I would not need a ribbon for very long. When the next full moon came, I would not be there to use it. When the moon was light enough to see by, Running Bird and I would steal away and take the road to home. Where Running Bird was, I did not know. I asked Rosita if she had heard about her. I looked for her as the woman and I walked up the street into the store. I kept watching, and on the way back, I did not find out where she was until the day after the first new moon. Rosita and I went to the market on the morning to buy vegetables. While she was picking out a basket of chilies, going over each one carefully because the senora would punish her if she brought any back that were scarred, I left her and walked around through the market in hope that I might see Running Bird. There were many Indian girls there, a dozen maybe, but I did not see Running Bird. I had given up and was on my way back to where Rosita stood when I heard a sound behind me. It was the Nez Perce, the one who was sweeping under the trees the morning the Spaniard brought me into the town. She held up a basket of things she had, and I thought that she wanted to show them to me. But as I looked in them, she said quickly in a low voice, "Do not trust Rosita. Everything you tell her, she will tell the senora. There is a baile at your house tonight. My senora is sending me to help you get the house ready, me and another girl. Your friend lives in the second house near the market, in an iron gate and a pole with a flag on it. My name is Nahana." The girl said this in one breath, and it was gone before I could answer. Rosita had 3 baskets filled with food. We each carried one and shared the other. As we left the market, I looked at the house where Running Bird was. I saw the big iron gate and the flag on the pole, but the gate was closed and there was a lock on it. I did not tell Rosita that the Nez Perce girl had spoken to me. The 3 baskets of food we carried back to our house were for the party that Senora had that night. The rest of the day I spent peeling chili peppers. I burned the skins over the fire and scraped them off and split each pod. Then I picked up the hundreds of little white seeds and placed the pods on a platter. Now and again the senora came and watched me, to make me hurry, I guess. We are on the top of page 42. I did not hurry, yet by late afternoon I had done 6 platters of chili peppers. My fingers were on fire and I could scarcely see from my eyes. Navana, the Nez Perce girl, was there, as she said she would be, sweeping the house and the walks and cutting flowers to put into bowls. She acted as if she had never seen me. When I spoke to her, she did not answer. After I finished with the chili peppers, the senora sent me off to my room to put on the new button shoes and the velveteen dress. People came when the sun went down. They filled the house and flowed out into the garden. In my new clothes, I walked around among them, as I was told, carrying a big tray of food. When one tray was empty, I went back to the kitchen for another. Most of the men wore long knives. They were like the men who had come to our canyon and threatened to destroy our crops and burn our hogans. The senora had told me to smile as I passed the food around, but I hated everyone there, the soldiers and their wives too. I did not obey her. I saw Nahana many times while I was in the kitchen or walking around with trays of food, but she never spoke. Once, when Rosita noticed that I was looking at the girl, she cautioned me. "The one you keep looking at," she said, "is bad. Once last year she ran away. She was caught and beaten for it with a long leather whip. If she talks to you, do not listen. If the senora catches you talking to her, you will be punished. We're on the top of page 43. During the days I had been a slave in the house, I had learned that Rosita liked the life she was living. She came from a poor tribe and a poor family, and she liked all the food she got to eat, the clothes the senora bought for her, the soft bed, and the big room. She liked ordering me around and the penny she always got to keep when she went to the market. If she talks to me, I wanted to say, I will talk to her, whether I am punished or not. You will be happy here someday, Rosita said. Most of the people were leaving, and I was in the kitchen. Nahana was bringing dishes in for me to wash. Rosita and another girl were helping the women put on their cloaks. Nahana put a tray of the dishes on the table and started out of the kitchen. She turned at the door and listened. Men on horses were riding away. Someone was playing a guitar in the garden. Women were laughing in the other part of the house. In 10 days, Nahana said, holding up her fingers, at the church. The next instant she was gone. I went on washing the dishes. There were many. Rosita and I worked until the first roosters crowed. When we went to our room, I lay down on the floor. That every night since I came, but I did not sleep until the gray light showed through the window. So that was chapter 8. I would like you to read chapter 9 independently, and it is not very long. It is only to page 50. So I would like you to read from chapter 9, which is on page 44, to page 50. So that's not very many pages. You got it. So on Tuesday, when I'm back, we are going to be starting from chapter 10.